Hello YouTube, this is Todd with Solid Shell Security, and I'm back with another Python programming tutorial. So what we're going to be talking about is loops, as you can see over here. And what is the purpose of a loop? We use a loop whenever we want to run code multiple times. A section of code, a block of code. A real life example of this would be seeing the ABCs are counting to a number, or basically any repetitive task you do. And this is really helpful in programming. And there are many different types of loops. I should probably put types. We have the while loop, the do while loop, and the for loop. In this video and with loops, I'm really gonna go over the for loop only, unless I see a need to go over the other two, because the for loop is kind of like the more popular, that can be used for anything kind of loop. So here I've already written the code, which is for I in range, and the range is going to be between 1 and 5, print I. So that means I is going to equal, every single time this runs, the first time this runs, I is going to equal 1. So we're going to print I, and it's going to be 1. The second time this runs, I is going to equal 2. So the range is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the second time it runs, I is going to equal 2. The third time it runs, I is going to equal 3. The fourth time it runs, I is going to equal 4. However, before we run this, I'm going to go ahead and give you a heads up. It's not going to say 5, and the reason is because whenever the for loop sees that I equals the end of this range, it's going to completely stop the code. It's not going to run the code. So it's going to stop at 4. So once it sees that it's at the end of the range, it's going to completely ignore this statement. So let's run it. I've already ran it once just to kind of test it, but we're going to run it again. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it didn't list 5 because whenever it saw 5, that was the end of the loop. So if you wanted it to list 5, we could change this number to 6. And we can run it again, and I'll list it. Also, something that we haven't seen before is this right here. Range is a function. So I'm going to add this in here. Range is a function, which means it's basically a built-in statement into Python which does a task, kind of like the print function. Print is a function which displays text. Range is a function which simply gives a range of numbers. Another example of this, if you want to play around with functions, is, well, kind of want to see what kind of functions. There's another one, and we can set word equal to hello and print the length of word, and word is 5 characters. We can also make it a phrase, and it's going to count. So word equals 11. So it's just a built-in function that gives you the length. So there are different kind of built-in functions, but not really going to get into that until I get into libraries and such. But so let me give you a hypothetical practical use of a range. So let's say we want to make a port scanner. Let me go ahead and space this out. So we're going to make a port scanner. For those of you guys who don't know what a port scanner is, a computer has 65,353 ports, or 65,535 ports. It's something like that. And it's how traffic comes in and out, but I'm not going to get all into that. So what we're going to do is we are going to scan the ports on a machine. Now for this example, we're not actually going to be scanning ports. I'm just going to show you where you would use, how this can be useful. So we're not going to have a graphical user interface. It's going to be text-based. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a range. So ports is going to be the range. Let's say the user wants to test ports between 1 and 80. So for I in ports, we're going to print I, and port is open. So whenever we run this, it's going to go through and it's going to tell us which ports are open. Now, we didn't have a test, we're not actually port scanning machine. This is just a practical use of, if you do build like a port scanner, or you need something that gives results based on like ports. There are different ports, so you want it to go through a loop and check each individual port. So this is just like a really basic example. We're not actually port scanning. This is just showing how a loop can be helpful, especially in printing information out to a user and going through and checking things. Another way of doing a for loop, if you see I put for I in some type of variable, kind of with like the if statements. With the if statement, you can do if I is less than 1, print it is less than 1. With for loops, you can also do the same thing with the test operators. For 1 is less than 60. So that's like just as an example. So that's a very basic for loop. We'll kind of play with them more and more as we go along. Hope you got down the concept. Plan to make some more videos tonight, and have a good one.